Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the extraordinary meeting of Buckingham Town Council. Do we have any apologies for absent?
Apologies from Councillor Ahmed, Councillor Draper, Councillor Fry and Councillor.
Do we all accept those apologies? Thank you very much. Okay, any declarations of interest on the items on this agenda? Okay, right, so we go on to Buckinghamshire Council consultation on the civil charging schedule, and we've got to again huge amount of thanks to our town plan officer, Sheena, for the deep dive she's done on the, I think it was thousands of pages, so it seemed like thousands of pages worth of stuff within the consultation.
It felt like it.
So thank you, Sheena. I'm going to ask if members have any questions or any comments, whether you are able to give us some guidance and direction on that. Is that all right, Sheena?
That's fine. Greetings from sunny Bournemouth, by the way.
Excellent. Thank you so much for taking time out of your break.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got recommendation that Buckingham Town Council submits consultation responses noted below with discretion given to the town plan officer to make supportive adjustments if required before the voting date. And then 1.2, it recommends that Buckingham Town Council request to be heard by the independent examiner. So I hope that you've all had time to have a look through the consultation and Sheena's draft responses, which we had a meeting last week with some of us from working group to go through all this. So any questions, any comments? John?
Yeah, so I've been through it. Thank you, Sheena. Excellent report. A bit dense in places, but the whole thing is much more dense now. I've got a series of comments. It seems essentially saying that our area doesn't need as much infrastructure as other parts of Bucks. And that can't be right, can it? We need roads, we need schools, we need all the stuff that goes with extra populations. And the notion that somehow we end up with less money, not only for us as a town council, but less money for the Shire Council too, because of their downgrading of the rate per square foot, just seems completely ridiculous. The consultants' report suggests that the margins are less here for building houses. Where's the evidence of that? In fact, the whole thing is very short evidence, which Sheena's already pointed out. I think this baloney about it being commercial in confidence. Well, what's the price of land here? How does that compare? Where's the actual data on that? The fact that they did this report without consulting local parish and town councils, all the representative bodies, BM and so on, in my view, is a serious omission that nullifies the whole report. Surely the idea of stopping any payment beyond, I don't know, over 400 is completely ridiculous, because it's the big developers that have the huge impact upon infrastructure. And I'm sorry, I don't trust the Shire Council to get a Section 106 instead correct, because all the problems we've experienced in the past with that. One question I've got for Sheena, who might be able to answer this: will the Shire Council be bound by the preliminary recommendations, or do they just have to sort of take them into account? The way you've got it in your report suggests that they're not going to be bound by it. They can still do something, whatever they want to do, even if the advice of the examiner is counter to that. And what I really ultimately don't understand is if, for example, the housing development south of Waipac went ahead because of no, sorry, not that one. The housing development to the east of the town went ahead because of inadequate housing supply across the whole county. If that's an issue about things about the whole county affecting a decision locally, then how on earth can we have more than one system of SIM anyway? It just makes no sense. The whole point of the Unitary Council was to have a single operating system, as it were, for the whole area. And like I said earlier on, the land value does not seem to be factored in. The reason that houses are probably cheaper up here than they are in Gerrard's Cross is because I suspect the value of land here is less than the value of land in Gerrard's Cross. That seems to be completely overlooked by the consultants, and I have no faith in the report, and I'm very supportive of all the comments that she has drafted in response, and I commend that to us, and if needs be, I will propose that her recommendations, both 1 and 2, are taken forward.
Okay, thank you, John. Sheila, are you able to clarify?
Yes.
any-
Yes, in relation to whether or not the Shire Council is bound by this report, no, they're not. It is obviously just a report. Their difficulty will be that they have to show that they've got the balance right between viability and provision of infrastructure. And this report is the best evidence they've got of viability, because they obviously haven't done anything themselves. So they've outsourced it. This is what's come back. This is their evidence of viability. So they may take stuff on board, obviously with consultation. They're supposed to consider it, and they're supposed to say why they're not taking it on board. But I suspect that although they're not bound by it, they are going to pretty much follow it. In terms of the values, if I could just say, the values they're talking about are within the old AVDC area. They're not talking about the whole of Buckinghamshire. So when they're saying that property prices are lower in Aylesbury and in Buckingham than other areas, they are sort of, if you like, drawing the line at the old AVDC district. Think that, does that cover everything, Councillor Harvey?
Sheila, Robin.
Yeah, I'm not going to mention lots of the points that need to be mentioned. Just for information, Buckinghamshire Council has only got to see this in an hour meeting. There was no pre-consultation on this. We just got a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting where there's very little time to question any of this, and the chat bar was very full, as you can imagine. It does seem rather strange that Aylesbury and Buckingham are mentioned in the way that they're going to lower the value of the contribution. It does seem that it makes North Buckinghamshire, by their own evidence, more vulnerable to development coming to North Buckinghamshire than South Buckinghamshire. So if you were to judge how they've done it, and you were a developer choosing where to develop, it's cheaper for you to build in North Buckinghamshire than it is to build in South Buckinghamshire. Not only because of land prices maybe, but the council's assisting you by making it cheaper. They haven't produced their infrastructure plan, which runs along their site allocation plan. And I fear that this decision has been made, and we have no knowledge, and I think John touched on that, on what they intend to do on infrastructure, because we're totally reliant on the Cross Milton Keynes roads, where most people work, and to Oxford. And there is no real connection road that way to Aylesbury, never has been, never been done. So how they're going to make it work, I don't know. I think, thank Sheena for the work she put into this. I'm emotionally and financially challenged on a local basis who come up with the idea of 400, because that means that if I was a developer, I would put in developments over 420, 415, 401, and whatever, in which case you could gain the choice by their own information, which is limited. So I hope that they're going to listen to it. It would be nice to think that that would be a first. But I think Sheena's done an excellent job in pulling out the stuff that I think, looking at Jane and other people who were there, of the broader scope of the discussion. So I'll leave it there and may say more somewhere else.
And yeah, Heather.
Okay, so just as a little bit of, I don't know whether it's much of additional information, I did write at the request of the group when we met last week. I did write to the service director and I got a response back from a Sill North consultation mailbox. And the question I put to them is whether officers had actually seen any of the calculations that presumably underlie the consultant's report. The answer was no, they hadn't, which is what, it didn't come as a massive surprise. And that brings me again to we have no way of judging this. We are being asked to accept something at, face value that somebody has made a calculation and they can't share with us what that is because it's apparently commercially sensitive. And we are expected to take on trust that they've had a sufficient number of responses. We're expected to take on trust that these responses are from organizations that have a detailed understanding of the local market and aren't just making general assumptions based on something, possibly the existence of a railway station, which may or may not drive prices up in other towns. And basically that this has been done with sufficient insight. So we're expected to take all of this on trust because none of it has been shared with us. That's already saying like, well, we'd quite like to see it. The fact that it hasn't been shared with anybody, any officers at Buckinghamshire Council, now that really worries me because that suggests we are, or that Buckinghamshire Council is almost blindly trusting. And I think, Sheena, you are entirely right, or I suspect you will be, that this will just be accepted at face value and on a basis that there might be slightly higher prices in Winslow and Haddenham due to the railway station. I'm finding it really difficult to believe that the prices are that much higher. I can't understand why. I also can't believe that the building is going to be much lower, or the building costs are going to be much lower. And of course, that isn't even starting to address the unevenness with the historically much higher sill rates in areas that have historically had them. So where does the council start justifying that? Sorry, it's all right. Off my soapbox now.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you. I think I know how they did the modelling, and I think I know which things are driving this, particularly around why Buckingham and Aylesbury are treated differently from the other parts of the area. So they aren't assuming anything different about the build costs in different areas. They're the same everywhere, apart from, I think they're a percentage rather than an absolute, so it actually will vary according to the house. Basically, it's all driven by their assumptions about the property prices in Buckingham and Aylesbury compared to the property prices around the rest. And in the consultant's report, they have a little heat map, which they show, which kind of demonstrates that we have a little blue bit in the middle of town. But this is based on average house prices, not on the price of new build. And if you look closely at that little heat map, all the lighter coloured bits around the edges, because that's all the new developments. Because actually per square metre, you get a lot more money for a new development than you do for somewhere on Page Hill or Linden Village. So they're basically driving all of this out the wrong data set, as far as I can see. It's not reflecting the real value of the properties that are being developed here. And the other side is the land. It looks like they're just assuming the value of land is the same anywhere in the county. So when you look at the difference between the value of land and the value of the properties, clearly it's smaller here than it is other places. So that allows them to justify that it's a lower sill. It's not rocket science modelling. They've just buried it in 130 pages of report.
Thank you very much.
Helpful. Thank you.
Sheila, do you want to come back on any of those points?
I would just clarify that the 400 plus is the current policy. in the other charging areas. So to the south, that's the policy that Buckinghamshire Council already imposes on the other areas. So that's just a continuation. That's not, if you like, new for us. I would also like to thank Councillor Haydock for nailing that down a little bit better for me as well, as to where the data is going wrong. I was beginning to sort of, well, lose the will to live, really.
Thank you. Councillor Jane, would you?
Yeah, am I standing? I'm standing.
Yes, please.
So the SIL group did meet and we had a really lively debate and we're very informed by Sheena. I think the trouble is when you're trying to counter something where we all around this table feel it's deeply unsatisfactory, it's not evidence-based, or it's based on stuff that's hidden away from us. And one of the wisest bits when we were all getting very sort of hyped up about it, Sheena said that we've got to find what can we counter this on. And I think the prematurity argument is the one, and we went for that. And I think we should have to stick with that one because you could say stupid, but that's not going to work very well. But I just do think they're trying to do something up here to us before they've actually considered the county as a whole. So I think I would take the advice that comes in this report and fight. It's the best land we've got to fight, best ground we've got to fight on is prematurity.
Thank you. Anybody else? Robin.
Yeah, I'm really grateful to Heather and John and Jane and other people put their input into this because.
No.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was trying to be. No, leave me alone.
Keep going.
I will do. I would have. No, what I was trying to say was that there's a bone in how do we go forward to be able to successfully question these matters. I think it's substantial enough that this will come up on the work programme, the Growth and Infrastructure Select Committee on a regular basis because they have to report on updates of the Buckinghamshire plan. I do think that a composite question based around the concerns that we have made here should be put because we won't have any opportunity anywhere else to put those questions in a public domain. Yes, those who are on Buckinghamshire Council can raise those questions. I do think it adds value if the town council does it because it stops the meeting and makes people listen to parish concerns. And there's always the opportunity in town council's concerns for further questions from members who may not be aware because they don't do planning, or they may not have had time to look at it, or they haven't got a Sheena and Annie or John and Heather who have crawled through this. So, and I don't know whether that would be something we could agree tonight as an addition can all take it to the future because I'll leave it as it is without a comment. I don't know whether I'd be interested because it's appropriate it should come from Jane. Jane is the chair of the planning committee. I'd be interested to know whether she thinks it's worth trying, but whether we could do something which is briefer than me, which would be able to tease out the issues or let them know.
So, where are you suggesting would you like to go to cabinet or something?
No, you can't ask.
No.
If you work the programme of the Growth and Infrastructure Select Committee has the development plan on it, there will be an update on the Growth and Infrastructure Select Committee. It seems most appropriate that somebody speaks for our council at there, and it is for our council. It's not for an individual or political reason. There are huge concerns here which need to be weighted down to ask why, what, where. And I don't need to repeat what people said because it's been some strong points based on Sheena's very well and thankful work and where she is informed. I hope you get your toes into the sea tonight, Sheena. But I don't know that to go. I'd be interested in what Jane thinks.
I think that is outside of what we're actually discussing within this at the moment. I think we need to nail down our responses to the consultation, and that's possibly something to look at.
It is, I mean, I would say it's a full council matter rather than a planning.
Yeah.
That would be,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Okay.
Just a matter, we're the town clerk. Though it isn't on the agenda, and we won't be able to discuss it or agree it because it's not on the agenda. It effectively is on the agenda because the item's on the agenda to be discussed. So we could agree in principle that we will investigate the point of putting together a question to the Future Growth and Influence Committee. Because if we don't, all this will have gone by, the time frame will have drifted, the consultation will be finished, and Buckingham's individual voice will have been bypassed.
That's a shame.
Okay, so I believe what councillor Stutchbury is proposing is an amendment to the recommendations that in addition to the other points, we also ask somebody from our midst to attend the next appropriate growth, infrastructure and housing committee and ask a question on behalf of Buckingham Town Council. And I would be happy to second that.
Okay, right, I understand the proposal now, sorry, Robin on. Heather.
Sorry, a couple of other points. The next one of those meetings is 21st of July, so we have a little bit of time. The other thing is there was just one section, I know maybe a bit detailed bit here. The page 22 of 29. The question is around about the strategic sites and why they have a different level for the 400 homes or more. But in the answer, we're kind of saying we're concerned about the less than 10 homes having a different rate to the 10 plus homes. And I'm just worried that that might be read as saying we actually want the lower rate for everything rather than a higher rate. I think there's unintended consequences possibly
Okay,
from
we're going
that
to go
section.
through the question
Yeah.
in a second and agree whether that is the appropriate response. So, John.
I'm proposing that we just accept what Sheila's draft.
No, I think we need to go through it all.
Okay. All that proposal, but okay.
So we've got a proposal that we amend the recommendation and seconded.
May I suggest, Joe, if you're planning to go through each one, we may as well get all of our recommendations
Yeah,
in a go.
okay.
And then we'll
Yeah,
have a
we'll do that again. Right, okay. So the first question, I'm not going to read it all through because I hope you've already read it and you've got it in front of you anyway. The first question, sorry, I've scrolled down to page 22 and scroll back up again. So do you support the council proposal to introduce postal charging schedule in the north and central areas of Buckinghamshire? Jim's recommendation is that we say no to that. Does anybody have any changes they wish to make to what Sheila has drafted there? No.
Propose that we agree it, just put no thank you.
Okay. And then the next question, do we need to vote on each one as we go along?
I think if members are happy to, we'll vote.
Yeah,
a lot.
yeah, okay. Right. So question 2, do you agree that taking account of the supportive evidence, postal rates, pound per square metre, set out on the draft charging schedule, strike an appropriate balance between additional investment to support development and the potential effect on the viability of developments? And Sheila's recommendation is to answer no to that. Does anybody have any comments to make on that? I have one word I'd like to change, where it says viability issues are raised by Section 106 agreements leading to delivery of less affordable homes. Can we change less to fewer, please? Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Always gets me. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Is everybody in agreement on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So nobody wants any more changes with that answer. Question 3, do you agree with different sale rates that are proposed to apply to different zones and different types of development? Sheila again has said we should say no to that.
Is there a hell no answer to that? No.
It's on
Very
that.
bright red. Not all red.
This is pretty different. I agree with the answer, but it says in selecting Buckingham and Aylesbury is different enough in terms of developer costs. They're not saying that. They're actually saying that Buckingham and Aylesbury have exactly the same developer costs as all the other areas. It's just the value of the development at the end of it is different. So that needs a little tweaking, I think.
Do we need to agree to change the words now, or
If what the recommendation was,
choose to allow Tina to make the tweak?
if members are happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so to reflect Heather's comments there, everybody in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Question 4, do you agree that the proposed exemption from sale for developments by predominantly public funded or not profit include organisations including medical and health services, social care, education, emergency services, waste facilities, community facilities, sports and leisure facilities? Jim's recommendation is to say yes to that.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Robin?
If I've read it wrong, Gina, I apologise. But is that saying yes, we accept they won't include it, or is saying yes, that is included? Because
Exemption.
So those don't have to pay still.
Yeah.
yes, okay. It's just that there's been lots of discussions around contributions and still to them, and it's been really negative. I'm getting the two things crossed over in my head. Thank you.
Okay. Question 5, do you agree with the proposal to charge a nil rate sale development of strategic sites, large size 400 more, or 10 hectares or more, with allocation local plan and including any parcel with a large irrespective of the size of the parcel and all uses within allocations, such as expected road infrastructure directly and through section 106 plan applications. Sheila is recommending we say no to that. Do we have any comments or changes wanting to be made in Sheila's response? Anya?
Following on from the previous comment made, we might want to de-emphasize the difference between the fewer than 10 houses and more than 10 houses, because that might be muddying the waters. I think our issue is that 400 houses plus might not attract any SIL whatsoever, and we are not happy with this, not least because that would include pretty much all the future development in Buckingham, and we wouldn't see any. So, and section 106, as we said before, is always very open to interpretations, what's being agreed, etc., etc. So, yeah, but the maybe the 1 to 9 houses will just take out that bit.
Are you happy with that, Sheila?
Yep, it's because the report has itself really seemed to focus on 1 to 9 and then 10 plus, and then Buckinghamshire Council has brought in this sort of top layer with their own policy of 400 plus, which the report doesn't seem to reflect. For the most part, they obviously haven't taken that on board. So it was really simply because the report is making this distinction between 1 to 9 houses and then 10 plus. But I'm quite happy if councillors would wish that taken out in case there's any confusion. I can reword that.
Thank you, Sheila. Okay. So question 6 is, do you agree with the proposed boundaries for the different SIL charging zones? Recommendation is no. Any comments? Anya?
Again,
Heather?
sorry, no, I think Heather Heather, I'm probably stealing your thunder here. The same comment applies that was made earlier. about the differential development costs. That does not appear to be the basis. The basis is the different likely sale prices of the houses.
Thank you.
That was reflected in my comment. This might be the bit where we can say, and it's based on average sale prices, not new build sale prices,
Yeah.
which could be quite different.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. You got that, Sheena?
Yes, there is a point in the report where they do talk about the fact that urban development does tend to have higher development costs, but they maybe don't carry that forward into their final conclusions. So I'm quite happy to take that.
Thank you. Anya?
In that case, we might challenge it on the basis that this is urban development, because they seem to assume that Buckingham and Aylesbury are similar, and they are not. I mean, in size and the urbanization of the lands of the town, it is completely different. You cannot compare a small country town like Buckingham, even though it is one of the bigger small country towns. You cannot compare that to Aylesbury. There's a complete nonsense.
Thank you. Robin?
Add the point that their policy in itself could effectively mean they generate no still contribution, as it can be gained by the developer, and their interests are not our necessary interest. Their interest is their shareholders. So this looks like by introducing the 400, it can be gained for development. That's the best term, and they could effectively make a financial decision, which means they can't deliver their infrastructure policy.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or suggestions, changes? So question 7, do you agree with viability evidence set out in the report prepared by Dixon Cell Partnership provides a suitable evidence base for the introduction of the cell rates as proposed? So there's no tick yes, no, or don't know being noted on this. Just the comments. So Sheena, are you?
I think I possibly left that one open to councillors, or I simply forgot to tick. So I will leave it open to councillors what answer they would feel reflects the comments.
Okay, Robin and then John.
We clearly don't agree because we haven't seen any evidence to support the analysis that they've done, apart from Sheena and Heather's deep dive. That's the best we've seen. So the obvious I propose is no.
John?
Yes, the answer is no, but actually it's because we don't know
Yeah.
that we have to say no, because they haven't provided us with evidence that could be scrutinised.
Yeah.
So I think somehow that needs to get woven into the answer, I suppose.
Okay. So that'll be a no then. And then again, question 8, do you agree with the proposed instalments policy? We've got yes, no, we don't know. Anya?
Considering the huge amount of issues we have before we ever get to this point, I'm not sure I spend a lot of time even looking at the instalments policy. So I guess the I don't know would reflect my view on this as sort of like, could be, you know, the instalments of something that we totally disagree with. I mean, how we're supposed to have a view on that.
Okay, Howard?
The only problem with the installment policy is if the developer goes bust and somebody takes over, who's going to pay the balance of the sill? I would say that they should pay the money up front.
Roger?
If you sign a section 106, which is a separate, but it's still money for public goods, you can pay by instalments. You pay a figure before you start, and as so many houses are built, you pay more funds. So maybe if this is the same as the practice for the 106, then that probably needs clarifying how they're going to do the instalments. But under normal circumstances, it's that's what the practice is at the moment.
Would you, Robin?
Listening to Howard and Roger, what I'm unclear about, if we didn't deal with SIL, council, and to be honest, we haven't really dealt with section 106s in Buckinghamshire Council, particularly grandly. It was better done under the district. The charging and the legal question about enforceability, I'm not clear whether in law there is the same enforceability on the percentage or not. And if anybody knows the answer, look, it changed the way I think. If you can enforce it, you get 25%, and then after they build so much, you get that. You get those sort of contributions in section 106 and so on and so. But I always understood that SIL was a flat charge, and when I read the other policies which don't reflect Buckingham, I believe they have flat charges in them. But it was a flat charge in the Wickham policy and in their local plan, and for SIL, of course. Why would you have a graduated charge in North Buckinghamshire unless you were aiming to encourage more development? Because it's cheaper then, because you only have to cover so much here and so much there, and that leaves the trouble with the other point of it. I would like to someone correct me, is that the money goes down in value. When you get the money at the beginning, you can do something with it because it has financial worth. Section 106 agreements, as we well know, can run over 10 years. By the time we get to doing such as the railway walk, the money needed to do it wasn't sufficient to do it, but it was aspirated in the first place. So I'm mostly against it because it seems like a get out for the developer.
Roger?
Yeah, just to come back on Robin's point, in a section 106 agreement, there's usually a cost of living increase as you go through. So if you come towards the end and the costs have gone up 10%, for example, then the developer will need to pay the higher figure. So I don't know what the instalment proposal is here. So whether, because you've got a flat fee, then is there a cost of living increase as you go through the development? And the other thing is, if you ask for the money up front and then SIL was sold off to various different builders, then it starts getting confusing because Bryant's or Taylor Wimpey pay so much, somebody else pays so much. So there's all different developers on a big estate. So it's difficult to say to one, pay everything now up front, because then they've got to grab all the money off the others.
Yeah.
So it could delay what we're trying to achieve by getting development done.
I'm going to ask she can elaborate on this too.
To a certain extent, it didn't get as much as my attention as it perhaps should have done. But what I will say is the impression I was getting was very much the usual thing about developers and cash flow, and that this was sort of tailored towards the sales, which would generate more income, which would allow them to pay the next tranche of SIL. I do have some sympathy with the idea, however, that SIL was very much, I think, meant to be a sort of upfront, quite clear tax on development. Whether it was meant to be sort of put into stages or not, I think there's an argument perhaps for small builders or medium-sized builders who might struggle to find that cash up front. But for larger developers, it shouldn't be too much of an issue.
So in terms of the cost of living increase that Roger mentioned with section 106 money, my understanding from the meeting we had last week was that wouldn't be included in any SIL charges or SIL payments. Am I correct?
No. If they have decided to do it on an instalment basis, then there may be something else. But I do think that, yes, the idea is that that's the calculable cost at the beginning of the build. So cost of living may not be, but I can go back and dig a bit deeper and find out if there are provisions within the legislation about that.
Thank you. Robin?
This is a town council question, because if 25% bill's going to come to Buckingham Town Council, notionally, as we've all discussed, they would probably want it up front, and not having to continually ask for it further down the line. If you look at their structure of seal proposals in their papers, they go for this convoluted thing, which is a public domain, where you have to write to them and say, we'd like our seal money, please. And then they say, oh, what are you spending it on? When it's your money. So I worry that we could be spending lots of officers' hours on asking for something what we want, and won't be able to make planning to spend it on what we would probably want to, which is the level which it was levied at. So we would be drifting towards a situation where, well, we'd like to spend it, we won't have it for 5 years because we're going to do all this. So I'm very much of the opinion that the parish contribution should be up front and not graduated, and the town contribution should be up front, because I don't really want to sort of say, well, we get 10,000 now, in 2 years' time you'll get 10, 5 years you can't, in which time you can't do anything with it.
John?
Yeah, I think what Robin says, and I could have said is absolutely correct. I mean, if we were going to say use this new money to buy a new playground, or buy some land or whatever, where do we buy that off? We're not going to say we're going to buy the playground. It's going to cost £80,000 or whatever the cost would be. We'll pay it to you in 10 instalments. Yeah. Then they're going to say, fine, yeah, go ahead, no worries. We don't need the money now, and just pay it to us over the next 10 years. They're not going to say that, are they? They're going to want the money up front. Maybe in a couple of instalments, before or after, whatever. But the notion that it can be spread out is awkward. And we're talking, I mean, maybe this is where a threshold becomes important. I mean, the likes of Bovis and these huge housing development companies, they've got loads of money. I'm sorry, but maybe a small builder perhaps can get that, but with a big builder, up front, one more.
Jane?
Yeah, I think it might be worth making a point under this one about it's like the spirit of SIL. The whole idea, it should be clear, simple, you know what you're going to get, you know what you're going to give if you're a developer. And that somehow should be embodied in the answer to this question. If it's a question of instalments, it would have to be on a sort of, fairly sort of straightforward sort of scale, but ideally it should be in the spirit of SIL.
Thank you. Heather?
I think maybe we're spending quite a bit of time on instalments, where actually they have different systems in Wickham and in South Bucks already on this, and it does depend on the amount of the SIL, whether you can spread it over a couple of years or you have to pay it all up front. I don't think Buckinghamshire Council is going to do anything daft on this one. I would suggest we move on.
Okay, we need to decide whether
Sorry.
we do need to decide on a response to this particular question. So do we want to say yes, no, or I don't know in response to this question?
I would say no, and comment further information required.
Thank you. We have a seconder for that? Seconding. All those in favour of saying no? And I think that's unanimous. Is it?
No,
it's not unanimous, sorry. Those against? And abstentions?
Sorry, you can read it out. Because I've basically done that you. One against. One against.
So we're going to say no as an answer to that. Sheena, do you think you've got enough notes there to put together a?
Yes. Yeah, I've got a draft. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So question 9 then. Do you agree that evidence set in the infrastructure funding gap statement demonstrates significant funding gap and hence desirability for introducing SIL. So we've got to say yes, no, or I don't know on this again. Any comments? Robin?
I think the tenure of what we've said is we're quite disappointed all the way through, aren't we? So to say yes at any point would be a real letdown, wouldn't it? They may get confused. So I think I would propose no, in the basis that a no might be noticed, where a yes will say, well, you said yes to something, so everything else that you said no to, we scored that yes very highly. So I would propose no.
While I can understand that sentiment, the question is whether we agree with the desirability of SIL, and I'm somewhat hesitant to say that I disagree with the desirability of SIL in principle. So I think maybe the answer is yes, but with a proviso that saying we do agree with the desirability of SIL, but we remain disappointed by the lack of detailed and quantifiable evidence.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Robin?
I was gaining it by what I said about the reaction. I think that I accept SIL. I think we set the principles of SIL. We don't accept the structure of the way that you've constructed the way you're going to deal with SIL. I think that reflects the responses that we put. The way that you've interpreted introducing SIL, we do not agree with, but we agree with the principle. Because otherwise they could get confused in their adding up of the score sheet and take this as that we had 100% of the people were in favour of SIL. And that would score immensely high. And then when they publish the minutes of the meeting, it will say 100% of people were in favour of SIL. But there was only a small percentage of people who were against all these introductions and such things. And Aylesbury, Buckingham will be in that small percentage of people. Yeah. So when you add the figures at the end, they'll say in the Cabinet report, everyone was in favour of it really in the majority because we only had so many people who were against it. So I think we need to have some strong word in there around that. And I've seen all these reports. I've read them. I've seen the way that they calculate a consultation report. And it's very truthful, but the evidence that the way they print it out is because a don't know isn't a no, and a yes is a yes, and not having it in is taken as don't know, and you get the score. So I don't know whether that's a suggestion anyone's willing to take on board.
Robin, so my thoughts on that is that I think it's an I don't know answer personally, because while we agree with the principles of SIL, we don't necessarily agree that the evidence set out in the infrastructure funding statement demonstrates a significant funding gap and hence the desirability of introducing SIL in the manner they're doing it. And I think that's probably quite an important thing, because they've set out what their evidence on it. However, we're disagreeing with their way of working that. So yes, we agree with the principle of SIL. However, we don't find that their evidence to be clear, concise, or
Up to date.
something. John?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think I don't know with an explanation. I mean, I object strongly to that. If you answer no, you can give more information. You should be able to give more information with an answer yes, don't know, and no. It's interrogative. So I think I don't know, followed by the explanation you just gave, whatever she didn't make up would make sense.
Heather?
I wonder if we could also say that there is a significant funding gap in Buckingham, and this current proposals will not fill that gap.
Yeah, lovely one to end.
Very good.
Well, yeah.
So we have a proposal for no, a proposal for yes, and a proposal for.
I withdraw mine.
I'll withdraw mine.
Okay, so we've got a proposal for I don't know.
Yeah.
Is there a seconder for I don't know?
Yeah.
All those in favour of responding, I don't know, those. And I think that is unanimous.
We're presuming they
this
do.
time. Okay, thank you very much. Right, now question 10 is please provide any further comments concerning the proposed introduction of sill in north and central planning areas of Buckinghamshire Council, corresponding to the area of the former Halesbury district. Clarification required as to whether zone A around Buckingham is a parish boundary or the neighbourhood development area. Any other comments? Anything else you'd like Sheila to add into that bit? John?
Well, on the basis that this will be the last thing they'll read of our submission, and therefore think they're most likely to remember, I think go back to what Jane said earlier on, is this is the point to re-emphasise the point that this is not the right time. We sort this out. This is premature before the local plan is actually agreed. At that point, maybe. But obviously, but not yet, because we're currently surviving on a whole skeletal pack of plans that don't hold together. And I think that's what I would say, we need to re-emphasise that point here. It's been said earlier on, but we need to re-emphasise that point here.
I think it needs to be a summary, doesn't it? A succinct summary of
Yes.
Yeah, Robin.
Point I think something made the nonsense of having introduced a new seal policy and not one for Buckinghamshire is leaving an open question for the future. So that should be included, the comment that they're introducing seal but not introducing a Buckinghamshire seal policy. That is said it's going to be done later. Well, they just matching everything else that's in the county to have a one county policy. So they're falling down on their principles that the unitary council should have a unitary policy. And the other strong point, I think, that the concern is strong over the proportionality around the housing numbers could effectively mean developments are gained negatively to the parishes within Buckingham neighbourhood plan. Because all you've got to do is put 401 and then you won't have to give you any money. Because and that in itself creating that weakness in a legal document which can be agreed, where if I'm looking at it, I go, great, we'll just put in 402 houses there, 401 there, and we don't have to, or we'll put a whole load of houses in one hit and we'll avoid paying anything at all. So it's taking money from and goes against the principle of the Buckingham neighbourhood plan and the neighbourhood plan principle. And also, I think you'll find probably runs contrary to the government's intentions around bringing forward local neighbourhood plans and could be challenged and will be challenged, I should imagine, by people at the stage of submission of the Buckinghamshire development plan, because by that time we'll know more information and any individual could challenge the plan and hold it up for a very long time over this fiscal decision being taken now, because it's presented that we've been told has to be done by this time frame, which goes back to Jane's why rush. So I mean, that was brief enough. I couldn't say it.
Are you happy with notes you've got, Sheila? Yes. Okay. So are we happy with
Sorry, yes.
We saw you nod.
So then question 11, do you wish to speak at the public examination of cell charging schedule? We said yes to
Yes.
that. Yeah. Okay, everybody happy with all that? Thank you so much, Sheila. Right, now we move on to the recommendations. So recommendation 1.1 is recommended that Buckingham Council submits consultation responses noted below, with the discretion given to the town plan officer to make supporting adjustments if required before the closing of the date. Robin.
I think the amendment which was to agree that we would agree that with an amendment that we will go to future growth and infrastructure committee to answer.
Separate to this, I think that's possible.
Well, if-
Goes into 1.2, but
Okay,
yeah, we'll do that in 1.2.
okay.
That's all right. Yeah. So, Anya,
I propose that we accept the recommendation, obviously with the proviso of the tweakments that we have discussed in during the meeting.
thank you. We have a seconder. Roger? All those in favour? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. And then 1.2, we have a proposal to have an amendment to that, which is that Working Town Council requests to be heard by the independent examiner and also to go to Residents Infrastructure Committee.
With a well-weighted question based around the agreed concerns. That doesn't tie us down to anything. We've got time to work that out.
It's just. The easiest thing to do is agree a principle that we will send somebody.
Yeah.
And everybody can have a chat and have a look at their diaries and use a vote for that first July. And then we agree at no meeting, we have to send a different thing.
So Robin, you're proposing that, do we have a seconder for that?
Yeah.
Okay, and all those in favour? And that is unanimous again. Thank you very much, everybody.
We did a vote on the substantive.
Sorry?
We agreed amendment.
Yeah.
No,
Okay, yeah, sorry, yeah, so now we vote on the substantive amendment. Proposed by Robin, seconded by Anya, all those in favour? And that again is unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. So, item 4, Chair's announcement. The resources meeting that follows this is our last meeting of this council year. So thank you everybody. This is now my last meeting of my mayoral year. So yeah, thanks to everybody for all the support during the last year. And let's continue to make Buckingham great. Date of next meetings, annual statutory meetings, Monday the 11th. The full council also on Monday of May. We're going to go into resource. Let's see.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's got lots.
Yeah, but you announced
Everybody, thank you for explaining the results. Bye. Okay, do we have anybody to speak in public? Thank you. And have we got any apologies?
Councillor Try.
Thank you. Happy to with Councillor Try. Yeah, thank you. Any declarations of interest? No. Okay, thank you. Right, minutes of the last meeting. 2nd of March. Are you happy to agree those?
Yeah.
Agreed. Thank you. Okay. Item 4 budgets. So 4.1, we've got the income and expenditure for appendix A. And I'll go by the numbers on the top left-hand corner, page 4 of 124. So page 4 to start with. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12, all marked reserves. And then appendix B, we've got purchase ledger. So page 13. 14. 15. 16. 17. 18. John?
Just a question, is the parachute available to be borrowed at any point?
Parachute?
Yes. Just young carers that having a parachute would be quite nice for some games at some point. Is it possible to borrow it?
I'd have to check the policy on events equipment, John, but not off the top of my head. But I'm sure we could have a chat about it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Page 19. 20. 21. 22. 23. 24. Okay. Right. So item 5, fund transfers. We can make the following. So 31st of March, 125,000 transferred to CCLA. To the current account. And 22nd of April. Another transfers. Anybody want to ask anything on that, Robin?
Just say thank you for informing us and in keeping with our policies and to note it.
Okay. Fran?
Just wondering why 125 went from the CCLA into the current account and then 100 went back at that point.
We needed the money,
Cash flow.
and then we had the precept came in.
Okay.
So we've
Thank
actually, since this agenda went out, transferred quite a few more back into.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, item 6, quarterly banking reconciliations. Thank you, Howard, for signing those. Item 7, policies. So on my agenda it says 8.1, but obviously that is 7.1. So you've got so receive a report from Steve on equal opportunities. So if anybody's got anything to say on equal opportunities policy. Fran, and then
It's a couple of minor changes, I think, really in the wording rather than any change in the actual policy as such. So I think with the compliance officer for his work on it.
Yeah. So John and Heather.
I propose we accept it. The recommendation.
Heather.
Yeah, also happy, I just wanted to note that I think reviewing some of these policies every 3 years rather than annually is a really good idea. And perhaps there might be some other policies that don't have to be renewed that sort of progress.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Okay, so we have to just put sends to full council. Yeah. So we're happy to recommend this to full council. So I can propose that, John.
Yeah.
And seconded, Heather. Yeah. And those in agreement? No, different than us. Thank you, Greg. Thanks, Steve. You're welcome that. Okay. And the next one is the vulnerable adults policy. So we've got reports and the recommendations. Any recommendation I can, well, it's a suggestion for the title. Safeguarding and protecting children, young people and vulnerable adults policy, because it says what it does on tin really. So Heather, yeah.
I think this is a good way to deal with it. I think it was me that suggested we might look at adding something to cover vulnerable adults. It makes sense to add it to an existing policy rather than having two separate ones.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Robin?
Though, yeah, I completely understand the desire to move to a sort of 3-year cycle, because I want to make sure that when we do it, because we're 1 year into the cycle now, which means we'll be reviewing these policies at perhaps before council. So I think that when Steve looks at the cycle, just look at the period of the council period, because we're reviewing it in year 1. If we were reviewing it in year 2, it would then be reviewed by us, and so with the new council been a year in office. So I think that just needs to be considered, because if you have a lot of new people looking at it, and it's a lot to take in at that point, and I'm sure they'll come to the same conclusions. But it's just to take that into consideration. The other thing with the vulnerable adults thing, an awful lot of legislation pumping through at the moment around what definitions of adults are vulnerable. We don't know where it's going to all land, and we won't know till town clerk advises whether any of it actually relates to us. So we do need to keep the option open if something relevant, which I'm sure town clerk will bring forward if it does.
I would say just because what we said is a minimum, we will review every 3 years. Obviously, if legislation changes or something that it needs to be reviewed, then we can bring that more quickly.
Yeah.
Thank you through you, Chair, town clerk, because what we don't want to do is, we've been very good at keeping ahead of the curve and or with the curve to anyway fall behind anything that comes out, because it's far more difficult at a later stage than it is at the start. But if that's town clerk feels happy that we can do that, I'm happy.
I'm very happy. Very comfortable with that. This is the watch.
Okay, so we've got 2 recommendations here. So that we agree to amend the safeguarding and protecting the children policy to include references to young people and vulnerable adults. So should we do that one first? So I'm happy to propose that. We recommend that. Fran?
Second.
Thank you. So those in agreement for 1.1? Unanimous. Thank you. And 1.2. That we delegate to the compliance and projects manager to make the relevant textual amendments to achieve this and retitle the policy appropriately. Happy to propose that again. Fran,
Second it.
thank you. Those in agreement? Unanimous again, thank you. Thanks again, Steve, for your work.
Would you be bringing it back here and put a final sign?
It doesn't say to bring it back here. Not a recommendation.
Will come.
Okay, so the next one is the IT policy. So the recommendation is that we review and agree the proposed new IT policy. The only thing that I noticed to mention is on the network and internet usage. So it says about being careful about which Wi-Fi networks you join, and public Wi-Fi networks in coffee shops or trains can be targeted by hackers. That is a big one, because you could be on like Virgin trains and it will come up. A hacker could put Virgin trains free customer, so it's hard to tell. So I wondered whether having something in there to, what's that right? So I put, when accessing council systems or work remotely, staff should avoid using public Wi-Fi where possible. If unavoidable, staff must take reasonable steps to ensure the network is legitimate. For example, by confirming details with the provider, and only access systems will work via secure connections. Because say if you're in a coffee shop, you can ask the manager, is that your Wi-Fi? That's the only concern I'd have, is when they join public Wi-Fi.
I wouldn't water this down. My personal view is that that is the standard text that council's using, and people shouldn't be, if you're not sure that the Wi-Fi is legit, you just simply shouldn't use it. The same as you wouldn't connect with your banking app. If you didn't know it was safe, then you shouldn't be connecting your work. And it's really safe. But I mean, Steve, I don't know if you feel differently.
It's the recommended text, verbatim for the whole policy. Is the recommended text from the Local Government Association. The only bit I've changed, I mentioned the policies. I've inserted my job title where it says if you need to report something, you report it to this person.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's verbatim text on the recommended policy,
Okay.
which was referred to me by the internal auditor.
Yeah, right, thank you. Yeah, that's fine, yeah, that's fine. Bobby and Fran.
Firstly, can I say I'm not an expert on all the things, but what I do know from what training and experience one's given is that local authorities are and councils are really open to people trying to gain access to their system. It is a corporate risk, because you only have to see that it filters down. If, for instance, anyone that you are regularly in contact with, from what I can understand, and I'm an expert on it, say Buckingham Council systems fell down, which they put their own systems in to protect them, and we go into there, then it comes to us, and then it goes anywhere else. So I think I just asked the question that at some point we do, Annie will know, Howard may remember that they do cyber training on Buckinghamshire, whether at some point we should just have a brief note about what the risks are. I'm sure everybody knows what the risks are, but there's always something, like using the adage of Councillor Isham said to me, you always learn something you didn't know when you go to a training thing. And I think because it costs us a lot of money to sort it out wrong, and I've got and it can be a simple fact that you open a link to somebody you think it is, and it won't have to be on a train, more likely to be somebody who looks familiar to you. And I notice town clerk would notify us if there's something fishy or phishing emails and that. and which is great, but we may not see them. So I wonder whether it's something to consider looking into, whether there is something we can do an online, something to stop people turning out, or a module, because not saying everyone should do it, but it would be wise that we made the chart to do it.
Part 3 of the policy has got some links in there for some training, I suggest members have a look at those if you're concerned, and if you feel that they're not but if we need to pay for some additional training. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Howard, and then, sorry, Fran, so Fran, Howard, Heather.
I propose that we accept the recommendations.
Howard.
What I was going to say, it's not so much that policy, but we do have someone coming from the cyber foreign office to speak to U3A meetings time. So I do have contact.
Okay.
I've done a sub-trade course, including building into the aspects of build work. So anybody wants some advice on that, don't come to me.
What did you find?
Didn't tell me.
No, I was agreeing with it. I mean, to be honest, compared with some companies I've worked in, this is pretty soft. I mean, a lot of places would say you can't use your own device, or you can't use things in a coffee shop, or you can't do, you know, this is fairly gentle, but if it's the recommended word, then that's fine. The other thing I would have asked them to turn that off because I can't hear anything. Thank you.
Yes, I'm not. Some people are too hot and others can't hear. I'm sure we could, yeah.
Is it low speed on it?
Yeah.
For me, it's a fiddly.
Okay, right, so it's recommended by Fran, we go with recommendation, proposed by Fran. Seconded. Heather. Thank you, agreement. Thank you, that's unanimous. Was that back to top to make sure that. Different role for the other performance. So yeah, it's news, okay, so the news better policy, appendix E. Anya and then John.
Sorry, maybe John was going to introduce what the point of it was. I reading through this, and obviously I didn't know where this, well, I can, apart from what it says where it originates, it feels a very different kind of policy to other policies that we have, in the sense that it is quite a lot of detailed operational instructions. And I wonder whether it's appropriate to put these in to put things like what goes on a front page and a back page, and what the process of proofreading is. Is that the right kind of thing to put in a policy?
Okay, John, you were next anyway. And Fran.
I think Anya makes a very good point. It is more or less a kind of operator manual, isn't it, for how to produce the newsletter. I'm not quite sure why I missed the meeting, obviously, which recommended it should come here. I don't know why we were reviewing that today. But I would say it's out of date, actually. I mean, the front page, the second bullet point, the current law and traditional Buckingham logo needs to be present. That hasn't been present on the front page for at least 3 years, I think. So it's, I mean, I think if I'm hearing what Annie is suggesting, we need to start again. I mean, it's a procedure. It's not a policy.
That's no business.
I'm not even sure what policy would be, to be honest. We can maybe I'd say refer this back to the strategy committee, the communication strategy committee, to have a look at, rather than signing off today.
Okay.
I admit, John, I wasn't at that meeting either. It's treated as a policy because there are quite firm things in there regarding third-party advertising, etc., which are, I think, important enough to be considered a policy. I would personally, I'm not going to. If you're the chair of the committee, you feel that sending it back to CSSC is appropriate, and I would argue with that.
I think it makes sense rather, because we sign it off now, we're kind of stuck with it for a while. I would say, let's just send it back to the committee to have a look at, and maybe pare it down a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm happy to second that, Robin.
I mean, I'm not on the committee, as a dyslexic, I don't think I've got anything to add to the committee,
It's yours, group.
a subgroup, not a committee. It's a subcommittee, so we should call it subcommittee, shouldn't we? Which comes under this committee. Well, I do take note of the point John made about a thoroughly modern, because I think that dates back to the town plan era, which Billy Moore and many others, Mark Gagger put together. So I think that was a phrase that came out of the, not the Buckingham plan, but the Destination Buckingham. Yeah. So I do think that some of these things, but I think the principles that we have a policy, so anything produced around the bones of what we shouldn't do in it are already here. So looking at it again isn't, and having new people look at it, always a good thing, isn't it? I'm not against it going back to the committee. We come up with a better, more snappy words for a logo, but I'm also against one of the great things about being inspirational and inventive about doing stuff. So some of the best ideas come out of those discussions. So
Okay, Fran, I'm sorry, Anya.
In that case, I'm happy to propose or second that we send it back. No, it's already been seconded. I would like to add that I personally would like to see a much shorter policy come back that really just looks at those principles and a general awareness about advertising, picture credits, that sort of thing, and then the governance. And I think everything else, to me, has no business being in any policy that we agree for ages to come, because otherwise somebody comes and says like, well, can we restructure this a little bit? Can we tweak it for all sorts of reasons? And then we need to look at this thing again whenever that happens.
Fran, would you propose that we go with recommendation? No, not you haven't. Okay. All right. So John proposed and I've seconded that the policy goes to the actual committee for the newsletter for you guys to approve for it.
Yeah.
I can vote on it if it's subcommittee, but I can't vote on it if it's committee because it won't be going anywhere.
All right, those agreement.
It's a strategy.
Yeah.
It is a
Subcommittee.
So everybody answer that.
It is a subcommittee, it has budgetary powers, it is a formal subcommittee.
Right, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Sorry,
Oh,
can I
sorry,
make
Heather.
one more point, because we did, as that subcommittee, we did review this and we clearly missed one or two bits that shouldn't be in there, but at the moment it's a policy and procedure, and from what I'm hearing, we actually want a policy, not a policy and procedure.
Yeah.
So I think whoever explains to the subcommittee what's required, is, I guess it's John.
Yeah,
is going
it'll
to
be
be
Nina.
with it anyway, but if that subcommittee also wants another procedure, this committee doesn't need to know about that procedure, does it? But they might need something that kind of details exactly who's going to things and what goes in which newsletter and everything else. But you're just saying that we don't need to
I'll
see.
be honest, it needs a bit of a tidy up, really. There's an argument that should come down after.
Right, thanks everyone. Okay.
Central Heritage.
Right, no, it doesn't. So item 8 is preventing sexual harassment, risk assessment and action plan. And can I start off by saying thank you, Steve? It's an excellent document and very thorough. So thank you.
Thank you. There is, having told me it's very clear, there's one minor error at the third point in there. There's for the workplace relationship section, there's a stray red cross in the high risk section. That should be in the low risk section because it is included in that.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, Robin and John.
Yeah, it's gone off the page, but I've read the small red cross, and if I recollect them, because I've lost the page now, it was to do with interactions to be with counsellors and
No.
wasn't that one? which one?
Page 47.
All it says is there a policy for workplace relationships, and we put a high risk there, but there is, so it should be low risk.
Okay, yeah, I get it. It's just that it was the only red found. Everything else was amber.
It's an error.
And that's all right. Please explain that, but we should not ignore it if it was a proper red.
John,
I propose we accept the recommendation.
Fran,
Second it.
Jane, those in agreement?
You notice it's with the correction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It comes up with that, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And now is item 9, staff handbook, that's currently being worked on.
That's on that, just to clarify, Chair, we normally be reviewing it, but there's been a number of changes to legislation, and our HR provider is looking at how to integrate them into our handbook, so it will be delayed.
Noted.
Thank you.
Okay, item 10.
Noted.
Health and safety policy and handbook, that's also been worked on, did you say?
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
Noted. Noted.
John, sorry.
And just as it's on the agenda, to say thank you for putting up the display about the international forget the actual phrase now. Remembrance of what?
Workers' Memorial Day.
That's the one. Workers' Memorial. So I went to the event in Milton Keynes on Sunday, and we're having a display in the window here because it's an international day. And the phrase for it is remember the dead, fight for the living, for the basis that workplaces can be very dangerous places.
Yeah.
And as we all know, somebody lost their life while at work in Milton Keynes only a couple of months ago. So, you know, whilst we may think we're fine, things can still happen.
Yeah.
And obviously the last, 2 nights ago, Pink Punters caught fire. We're not speculating as to what happened or why, but luckily the staff were very well organised and got themselves and of course all of the punters out in time, and nobody was injured, which was great, which means they had good fire routes and safety and everything else. So we must never ever lose sight of the importance of health and safety.
All right, thank you. Item 11. Apologies.
I think it is worth noting the Milton Keynes situation, because one of the things which has been worked on, and this is where your trade unions and work improved policy.
Well,
is,
just to note, I think we're getting off.
Well, I thought that I could talk just as much as John did. Am I going off track by talking about?
Stopping talking, it's that item was to note, we've noted it.
Okay, you won't know what I was going to say then.
You might have told me earlier.
I didn't.
Okay, it's fine, tell me after. All right, don't worry, not going to sleep. Item 11, financial regulations. To receive a report from Pat and Steve, and that is, we've got a report and then appendix H. Anya.
I propose that we accept the recommendations.
Fran.
I second that.
Okay.
If I could just mention that the report mentions that the external auditor commented on this, it was about the internal auditor.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, those in agreement, recommendation, let's send it to full council, that is unanimous, thank you very much. Thank you, Steve, for your work on that.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Steve. Okay. Right, we're on item 12. So financial management risk assessment and scheme of delegation. So again, that's from Claire and Steve. Was it just mainly Steve again?
It was mainly Steve, I'll be honest, but
So we've got a report and I, which is risk assessment, and then scheme of delegation is appendix J. So I hope that you've all read it. Thank you, Steve, for your work on this again.
I propose that we thank the officers involved and accept the recommendations.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay, there's an agreement. It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Is there a seconder for that?
Yes.
I knew it. Just.
Right, so next we've got the review of internal controls. So I received a report from Steve and Claire, or Claire and Steve. So we've got the report and then appendix K. I hope you've all read this. Did you want to say anything, Claire or Steve?
No, just to reiterate that the alterations because of regulations come through and the numbering or the lettering of the controls have been changed, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Fran,
I
and then
propose
yeah.
again, we thank the officers involved and accept the recommendations.
Thank you, and yeah.
I feel it's important at this stage to add that this is a lot of work that goes
Yeah.
into it. And just
Massively.
because we go through this quickly, that should not
Yeah.
mean that we don't pay attention to it
Yeah.
or don't appreciate it. And I'm happy to second.
Thank you. There's an agreement. Unanimous. Thank you.
Pleased to know that that's sufficiently well that members don't need to ask any questions on it.
That's the way of looking at it.
And it shows that everybody's reading their agendas and all the reports and everything, brilliant. Okay. Right, next is 14. Standing orders, Howard.
13.8. Which it says that rather than paying to the mayor's charity account, the money will be paid directly into a charity which the mayor supports. The only problem I can see with that, not all the charities may have an account which money can be paid within Buckingham. Some charities do have, other accounts. And you could be creating a lot of hard work for for Jodie, really. She's got to go to Milton Keynes to pay any money.
The Buckingham members agreed about this time last year to close the mayor's charity account because of the fees that we put on it. So this is not a discussion about whether or not if we have that account has been closed. So this is now about just amending the standing orders to reflect that reality.
You still got to address what you do for charity, because you're saying you'll pay it directly into their account. You could amend that to say you directly pay it to the charity.
That's what happens.
Yeah, but it doesn't say that in the amendment.
What page is that on?
13.8. This is about presentation, Chair.
13.8.
13.8, yeah. Pay directly into
What
the
page number,
charity's
sorry?
chosen bank account.
What page number?
What page number? 114?
75.
Oh, that's the previous
That's
item.
going back a long way away, isn't it?
We've already agreed that. That's the previous bit. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's just standing orders.
Yeah, we're doing standing orders now.
Yeah, we're doing standing orders and not,
Yeah,
we've gone past this.
Well, it says it's standing orders 75, doesn't it?
So it's there, yeah, agenda.
That's the right
Item
name.
14.
Yeah, we're on that, but page 75 doesn't relate.
13.8.
So I think we're getting financial rates and standing orders.
Yeah,
Confused. So page 75 that's the financial
So
rates, isn't it?
that's the financial regs.
regs.
Yeah,
So we've done that one, appendix H.
Yeah.
And we're on item 12 now.
No, we're
No,
on
item 14.
Okay, we've done those two.
Appendix L.
yeah,
So we're on standing orders.
And that starts at page 100. Yeah.
yeah,
Item 14. Paragraph 13.8.
that's not item 14.
13.
Not be.
So third,
Wait a second.
item 13, code of conduct and dispensations.
No. Item 14, standing orders,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Appendix L.
What page on the top left hand corner?
Page 75, 124.
That's not standing.
75 is the
That's not
standing
standing
orders.
order.
Has got page 75 in this one of Howard's agenda.
That's very strange because
Right,
Mine's
that's,
900.
okay.
Are you looking at it online?
One is. Mine's page 75 is different from yours.
I've not got a clue.
He's got.
Yeah, so the document that has page 75 is the financial regulation.
Just in support, how there's two lots.
Sorry, we're now on the next item on the agenda.
We're standing orders now.
But how it's.
And I can't see a 13.8 on there at all.
Paperwork setting.
Can I suggest an offline discussion?
So we'll have a look at what Howard's looking at. It'd be good to sort this out, John, just because otherwise we're not going to be talking about the same thing.
Yeah, that's page 75. That's that.
Yeah.
Which is page 70, but we're on page 100. We've gone past that.
Okay, well, when you move on to item 14,
Hmm.
that is what I've brought up. Because it says at the top of my page, item 14.
Yeah, page 75.
Oh, okay.
We're on page
Okay.
100. Does that make sense? Sorry.
Go to your page 100 and let's see what Monica says.
Many pages.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. Right, maybe 100, yeah, buying orders, page 100, you're on the right there. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for letting us sort that out. Okay, where were we?
Standing orders.
101.
Yeah, no, I know that.
Page 100.
They walked along.
We haven't started, I don't think, have we?
John,
Yeah, I've got a couple of points to raise, really. One is, I'm a little bit unclear about the changes to submitting apologies that have been inserted on page 107, highlighted in yellow. I'm just confused by it, because the principle that we established some years ago now was if somebody wants to submit an apology for not being at the meeting, they would email that in, perhaps with an explanation. I didn't know that an explanation was required, but now I was given an explanation. But when we come to the public meeting, which is filmed, as we know, we don't give that reason out loud because of privacy, security, as mentioned in the document. However, the way it's phrased appears to be saying we would be mentioning that in the meeting, and I'm unclear exactly what's been recommended. So perhaps, Steve, did you?
So the intention of that, I'm sorry, it's not clear, is that we will provide a standard list of reasons for apologies being given.
Yeah.
So they'll be numbered. So for example, one could be statutory reason, two could be holiday, three could be work, whatever. We would give everybody, all the members, the list of what those numbers are, and what those reasons are. So if you came in and said to me, your apology was that you were going to be on holiday,
Yeah.
you wouldn't want to disclose that because that would leave you probably perhaps vulnerable.
Okay.
No one outside of the council would know what reason number 4 meant, but with holiday, but members would really need to know in the meeting because it is required that reasons are given.
But somebody could submit a freedom of information inquiry to get that list. I don't understand it.
That's protected.
Well, what's the need for through the chair? What's the point of the change? Why?
Because there is a requirement that apologies, a reason for apologies are given. At the moment, members give their apologies, they're given, they're mentioned in the meeting as so-and-so's given their apologies, but we don't say why, and that has to be minted.
Okay, Claire wants to jump in on this.
Okay, so one of the problems, and I'm going to be blunt, is that we've had occasions recently where members have got very close to not having attended for 6 months. So the legislation says members need to have agreed the reason, basically that they need to have agreed the reason why that member wasn't present. And at the moment, everybody's, we get, somebody says, I just want to send apologies. Half the time they're sent through somebody else, which is not part of the standing orders. And everybody goes, council, somebody's not going to be here. Do we accept the apologies? And everyone goes, yes. Well, that's not sufficient. Should we have a problem later down the line when we're looking at a council 6-month attendance? We haven't really complied with that because members haven't agreed the reason for the council not being present.
Yeah.
So this is a workaround that a lot of councils do, whereby you have a confidential list and members will submit them and say why. Item number 1 might be illness, and we would say councillor
Blah, blah.
blah blah submits item number 1 as their reason for apologies. Do we accept that? And members will say yes, we accept that, and that's fine. That would be fine. If somebody FOI'd our reason list, we don't need to reply to it straight away. We could simply change it. Yeah. Before the next meeting.
All right, I'll let you come back on that, John, and I've got Fran and Robin.
I hear what you're saying, and obviously there are regulations around 6-month non-attendance, and so on. And therefore it's important that we find a proper and legal way of accounting for that. I understand that. I still fail to understand why it has to be addressed in a public meeting when that person can write to you as the town clerk, as the second citizen of the town, and you can keep a record of whether that's a legitimate reason or
because
not.
I have no authority to accept a member's apology. Council accept the member's apology.
I mean, people can just say a number 7, and anyone can say, "Are you really ill?" Sorry, number 7 says you're ill. You're not ill to me. I mean, where does it go to? It's still an infringement of privacy, in my view.
It's a summons to attend the meeting, and if you're not going to attend, then you need to tell council that you're not attending. If you decline to do that, that's your option. You don't have to submit an apology, but it does mean that if you were to then overrun that 6 months, and it would be noted in the agenda that you were absent and your apologies haven't been submitted.
So some apology accepted and some apologies not there.
That would be an option for council.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Fran, and then Robin.
So I was going to say, it looks like there's a coding being put into this, so the actual reason isn't put out there, and as Claire says, that could be changed at any time as long as members are given the updated list. I do wonder what would happen if the members didn't accept somebody's apologies.
In a lot of cases, they don't necessarily. I mean, I'm sure, Steve, at your previous council, you have occasions when members didn't accept.
Yeah. We had a vacancy arise because a particular member didn't attend for 6 months. However, they constantly gave their apologies, thinking that because members had accepted it, or in the minutes that they received it, was sufficient to stop the clock ticking for the 6 months, and it's not.
Members have to have a reason, and they have to accept that reason.
The wording is that it must be approved or not approved, and it should be on an individually, not on block like we currently do.
Okay.
Okay, got Robin and Andy. Sorry,
Can I just come back and say that in that case, I propose that we accept these recommendations.
Thank you. Robin and Andy.
I understand the logic, and I understand John's point of view. Of course, when you have to attend any meeting of the council, I think you need to be clear that asking people to attend the public sessions of councils to include or that their attendance. So I understand where Steve's coming from, that someone turns up, they sit in the public session, they're present at a meeting of the local authority, and they go home recording their attendance. They may take no active part in it. And I've seen that. So I do understand where we're going with it. I also completely empathise with the confidentiality issues that John's adequately stated. So But if the rules are the rules, that we have to apply them. And I can imagine that I've never known the council refuse anyone's tenants, but we probably are, because we all know each other very well, we probably take it on trust that there's a good reason for not offending. And that could be the same in any other council. I tend to sort of, we have to vote for it and note it or whatever, but I do think it's worth discussing these things because it affects councillors, and also just prove your chair. If we had someone who was terribly ill, sometimes there is an agreement that you accept their apologies till such time as they're better. I would really be quite upset if someone was terribly ill. We don't really want that to happen. But I've known councillors be ill for a very long time, and they reappear back some months after the 6 months because they're well.
I would respond to that with the Chair's permission and say, and that is a very good reason to make sure that we have very clear public reporting that those apologies received and accepted. Otherwise, it could be challenged, and someone could say, "Well, where's the evidence that members accepted that reason and that apology?" And we say, "Well, we don't have any," and then we'd be in a very difficult area because it could be challenged. Well, where's that council still sitting? They haven't attended for 6 months and they haven't given appropriate apology.
Thank you for you, Chair, because the people can generally be unwell, yet still want to be a councillor, and they have the right to recover and come back.
Angie, then John.
Thank you. Just a question. When we talk about 6 months, it's a continuous period in the 6 months. It's not over the whole period of the council, is it?
No, it's a continuous period of 6 months, which actually, if you're not on a lot of committees, can be actually surprisingly few meetings that you need to miss before you get in quite close to that 6 months. So,
John.
Just a point of clarity then, on the 6 month issue, if you give your apologies and they are accepted, does that interrupt the 6 months immediately?
No.
yes,
It
if you
does.
give your apology and then there's a clear understanding and council understand why you've given that apology, then yes, that accepts you off the hook. Yes.
Okay, I didn't know.
But it needs to say they've been approved, not accepted, and obviously.
Okay, okay.
Ruth?
Just to add, it's exactly the same in school governing boards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree with apologies, I think.
Right, we're going to move on. Okay, so John.
I have another point.
Okay.
So
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, but I
No.
think it's
Stay here for discussion.
It's section 10, I have not the page on the section 10, which is page 112 on it.
Yeah.
Motions at a meeting that do not require written notice. There's a whole rip of them there. I would like to add another one, which would be therefore XV111. And I would propose that this reads, to agree that if a matter is sufficiently urgent or important to require the town club to issue a letter, email or press release on a subject discussed on the agenda. I think we ought to have the capacity to raise such a motion from the floor of a meeting without prior notice.
My instinct is that that would be illegal because members wouldn't have had 3 days clear notice to understand the implications of that. I'm happy to go away and check that. Bounce it across to Steve as well for your view.
I would think similar, but I would need to check it.
But it's on the agenda, so it's not out of the blue. It's something, and it would come up as an amendment potentially anyway. So I'm just saying, I think it ought to be possible for that to again tied to the agenda. But obviously, I'm very happy for you to go away and check the legality of that.
It's not an amendment I've ever seen in anybody's standing orders, and my first instinct is, well, if members are being asked to approve a letter to be written, then that consideration should have been on the 3 months.
3 days.
Sorry, I'm not on the 3 days.
3 months is a bit excessive.
Even 3 days in advance, so the members have an opportunity to consider what the implications of that. It stopped these occasions where somebody speaks passionately on something and everybody is sort of, oh, yes, we should do that, and actually hasn't had an opportunity to read up and think through the implications, which is why the 3 day rule is there.
All right, I've got one first then, Anya.
I understand where John's coming from, in the sense that we're elected here to look after residents of Buckingham. So something's on the agenda, but not for an action. I think we do need to consider where the legal line comes with that, because you can then not comment on it. Something can happen, and it shouldn't be a common affair. In extreme circumstances, I think it should be at least not agreed to agree them as they are, but ask the officers go away and look at John's point and come back with what their findings are, because I think we're in a grey area.
I think it's a grey area. My instincts are very clear on this. Members should have 3 clear days of notice to make.
I totally understand, but I understand your logic.
No,
but there are instances where something happens, it's not necessarily, although we can ask for, in those instances, members can request a meeting and publish an agenda, but it could be after it. I think, John's a long-standing member. I think it's a point he's raised. I think we could at least come back with a written response around the rationale behind what supports it. I'm not having I think that's the way to go. And then rather than discuss it here and disagree, I don't want to be disagreeing. I think a rationale around would bog.
Yeah. Right, Anya, then John, then Andy, then moving on.
I was just going to say that in most cases, sorry, multitasking, slightly faulty here. In most cases, I believe things like this can be dealt with an amendment within a decision that is on the agenda. If something that's just for discussion and there's no way of putting something forward by amendment, then I think we are looking at either something that can be dealt with in the next ordinary meeting, or if it is of such urgency that it must be dealt with immediately, then an extraordinary meeting can be called, because then we're talking, I don't know, something. I don't want to give examples of what we might be talking, because none of these things would be pleasant. But I have no, obviously it would be useful for the clerk or Steve to come back with a short written explanation of why that is or is not possible.
Thank you.
I would add that this list is the comprehensive list detailed from the template of standing orders.
Andy, and then John, then moving on.
Thank you, Chair. I was also of the belief that it was really, really, really urgent that the chair could introduce it at the end of the meeting. Something like, the thing is flooded somewhere and we need to action. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, okay. So I propose that the town clerk, assisted ably by other colleagues, come back to the next meeting with a report detailing what is and what isn't possible within this realm, and what is the scope that we can use when, because there have been occasions, not just in this committee but in other committees, where we said, we should write to the MP about that.
Yep.
And we can't do it. And things like that. And I'm thinking, why not? I mean, there is, because it's not within the bounds of items 1 to get my revenue rules correct. 17. So I'm invoking number 8 to require a written report. That's what I'm proposing. I mean, if they're accepting it.
I'll just do it, John. I don't.
Okay, fine.
I'm happy to double check it and go through it. And it's obviously a question that members are interested in, so I'll just do it.
Okay. All right.
I would expect it, but the town clerk says she'll do it, so we don't need to do that.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not impressed.
Okay, so we're not going to recommend these to full council because we're waiting.
They need to go to full council, so they have to go to the first meeting of full council. So I will report to the full council meeting.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. So
we're going to vote on the recommendation.
Yeah, just burn back up. Right. So recommendation is that members review and recommend the revised Buckingham Town Council standing orders to full council. Those in agreement?
didn't see a second, did I miss that?
Ruth seconded it.
Ruth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah, right.
Yeah, we're all there.
Unanimous.
Yeah. We're all in standing order. Order, very difficult to follow.
Right. Ourselves. Right, 15 grants policy review. So we've got a report from Claire. And does anybody want to speak on this, or we go with recommendation that the grants policy takes place in 3 years' time, ready for the next 4-year cycle? So I think, John, you're the one that mentioned about the review, having a working group at the last meeting.
Sorry, I'll just catch up. Sorry.
121.
Yeah, that's fine. That's okay with me. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm happy to propose this. It's seconded.
Yeah, I seconded.
Thank you, Anya. Are those in agreement? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm gonna act like my parents say shows 124. This is the best. No, it's very not. It's not. Right, so next is 16 updates from reps on outside bodies. Have we got anything from anybody resources related? No? Okay.
Just to say that when we're using the one waste site, we know it's open, and just to note that our rubbish may be in 5 years' time taken away by a new unknown contractor. So that will impact on all the residents of Buckingham, and it will impinge on us if we ask whoever she, he or they may be to take it away. And it's something perhaps we should be mindful of. Perhaps at an appropriate time ask them individual questions about how, where, what, and all these type of things, because it will have a cost on everybody, including town council. It may be revenue neutral. Partly because the report wasn't full enough to be able to make them assumptions. So, but I would say, I think it's a sad day, because I could say hand on heart that the housing value wage is one of the things that's caused me personally with a request to have the least of all things in the time that doing it. And I think John Cartwright and Councillor Edmonds, who were the district chair in that, took the decision not to do what everybody else did in South Buckinghamshire and keep it in-house, would probably be quite cross now that it's now going to be opted out with so little information, because it will affect us all and our constituents. And we're supposed to watch it drift away with all but a little tissue of waving goodbye. And I just think it's one of the consequences of that we're now going to effectively inherit South Buckinghamshire's policy, which they voted through before the formation of the Buckinghamshire Council. So we get it right. They voted to agree their waste policy to go with a outside provider and combine it with a contract. Effectively, that decision of 2020, which was why the district council became the decision of Buckinghamshire Council in 2021, and effectively that decision is now going to influence all our residents, and that's all public record. I just think their recycling has been good. We went to a thing the other day, thanked Heather, and we went to visit the incinerator, and I was mightily impressed. So I'm really sorry that this is going to happen. So we will get to hear about it eventually. But I just think it's important enough to mention, and I'm a bit sad about its demise.
All right, thank you. Okay, 17 is complaints and compliments.
I just wanted to say this gave me a laugh after reading an awful lot of pages. The person who could tell the Palestinian flag from an Italian.
It's hilarious.
Just
I had a phone call.
Yeah.
You had a phone there.
I had a phone
Did
call,
you?
yeah.
What's that on?
Or the flags for the actually.
Why, we've got Palestinian flags up in the town.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Ben then, John.
But at least it demonstrates we have a lively interest in what the town council.
No, it was to show the stupidity of the
Yeah.
populace.
Yeah, I know, but
I think that's probably being a little harsh, don't you?
I must admit, I am not an expert on flags. And I think many people have said with our own flags, how many people hang the Union Jack at the wrong way and things, and so I think it is amusing, but I think it was dealt with brilliantly by the office, and we should thank them.
Right, can you please thank the office?
Thank you.
Okay, has anybody got anything on the complaints and complaints?
Just to add that given that St George was a Palestinian, perhaps on St George's Day next year, we should actually fly.
I think we'll move on from there.
No, it wasn't.
Just
Robin, quickly,
I
please.
think your Friday was Turkish
Yes.
and not Palestinian.
I think definitely off the agenda now, thank you. Okay. Right, chair's announcements, I don't have any. Date of the next meeting is Monday, 22nd of June. Going correct, isn't it? Right, so members happy to go into private session now?
Yeah.
Yes,
Agreed.
thank you, can we have a vote on that, please? Unanimous, thank you very much.
Claire, switch off.
Yeah.